The massive starship Horizon's Edge hung in the darkness of space like a silent predator. Its hull gleamed with a dull metallic sheen, reflecting the weak light of the distant red dwarf star. Captain Alina Kim stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the planet below. Green and blue swirled across its surface, promising life, promising conquest. "Scan complete," announced Michael Lee, the ship's primary data analyst. His fingers danced across holographic displays, parsing information that would change humanity's future. Preliminary readings confirm multiple indigenous life forms. Technological development appears pre-industrial. Alina's lips curved into a thin smile. Pre-industrial meant vulnerable, meant conquerable. The planet's name was HR 7392, a cold string of letters and numbers that would soon be replaced by something more human, something that would mark their victory. The Voraks, the planet's native intelligent species, had no idea what was coming. "Prepare the first wave," Alina commanded, her voice calm and steady. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Years of training, years of preparation had led to this moment. Humanity had been searching for a new home, a new world to expand into. Earth was dying, its resources depleted, its ecosystems collapsing. This planet represented hope. In the landing bay, soldiers checked their pulse rifles and atmospheric adaptation suits. These weren't just soldiers. They were colonists, dreamers, survivors. Each one carried the weight of a dying planet on their shoulders. The first drop ships broke through the planet's atmosphere like silent arrows. They moved with precision, avoiding the primitive detection systems of the Voraks. Alina watched the holographic display, tracking each vessel's trajectory. "Initial contact teams report no resistance," Michael said, his voice tinged with a mix of professional detachment and underlying excitement. The Vorak cities were unlike anything humans had seen before. Organic structures that seemed to grow from the landscape, blending technology with living matter. They looked beautiful. They looked vulnerable. Alina knew the protocol by heart. First, establish a secure perimeter. Then, communicate. If communication failed, neutralize resistance. The Voraks would be given one chance to negotiate. Just one. Her second-in-command, David Park, approached with a datapad. "Initial resource surveys are promising. The planet has everything we need. Rare minerals, stable climate zones, multiple potential agricultural regions. We're not here to negotiate," Alina replied. "We're here to survive." The first landing parties touched down near a large Vorak settlement. Tall, slender beings with iridescent skin emerged from their organic structures, watching the human ships with a mixture of curiosity and growing fear. Rachel Kwan, the lead xenobiologist, was already collecting samples. Her eyes burned with scientific passion. Every creature, every plant, every microorganism was a potential key to human survival. "Preliminary genetic analysis is fascinating," she muttered, her scanner moving rapidly. "The ecosystem here is complex, interconnected in ways we've never seen before." Alina didn't care about complexity. She cared about survival. "Prepare communication protocols," she instructed, "but have weapons hot and ready." The first day of human arrival would be remembered, not as a day of peaceful contact, but as the day everything changed for the Voraks. The day their world was no longer their own. The conquest had begun. The transformation began quickly. Within weeks, the first human settlements rose from the planet's surface like metallic flowers. Massive terraforming machines crawled across the landscape, reshaping everything they touched. The Voraks watched in horror as their world changed. Rachel Kwan stood in her mobile research lab, surrounded by tanks and examination chambers. Captured native creatures moved restlessly inside, pressed against transparent walls. Some were large, reptilian-like beings with multiple eyes. Others were smaller, almost mammalian, with fur that shifted colors like living camouflage. "Specimen Alpha 7, she muttered into her recorder, "shows remarkable adaptive capabilities." The creature in the nearest tank looked back at her. Something in its gaze made her pause. For a moment, Rachel felt like the specimen was studying her, not the other way around. Outside, construction drones hummed constantly. They stripped minerals from the ground, cleared forests, and built human infrastructure with mechanical precision. David Park oversaw the operation, his tablet constantly flickering with progress reports and resource maps. 93% of the northern continent is now under human control, he reported to Elena during their daily briefing. Native resistance is minimal. Elena Kim looked at the holographic map. Red zones marked human-controlled areas. Blue zones represented the shrinking Vorac's territories. Soon, there would be no blue left. Continue the domestication protocol, she ordered. Every native species must be categorized. Useful specimens will be kept. Others will be removed. The domestication protocol was more than just a scientific process. It was systematic destruction. Native ecosystems were torn apart. Entire species were captured, studied, modified. Those that couldn't be used were simply eliminated. Michael Lee managed the Biological Processing Center. Rows of tanks lined the massive facility. Some contained creatures being genetically modified. Others held specimens waiting to be studied. A few held creatures that would become utility companions, living tools designed to serve human needs. One particular group of creatures caught special attention. They looked like a cross between dogs, primates, and something entirely alien. Intelligent eyes, complex muscle structures, unusual brain patterns that made the scientists nervous. These are different, Rachel told Michael one evening. Their neural networks are unusual. Michael didn't look up from his screens. Catalog, modify, control. That's the protocol. But Rachel knew something was special about these creatures. Their eyes seemed to hold more than just animal intelligence. Something deeper, something watching. The planet's original inhabitants were pushed back. Vorac cities were dismantled. Their technology was studied, then discarded. Their culture became nothing more than data in human research banks. Massive agricultural zones replaced natural landscapes. Engineered crops grew in perfect rows. Automated farming machines moved like giant insects across the transformed terrain. Everything was efficient. Everything was controlled. Elena Kim watched the progress from her command center. This wasn't just colonization. This was complete transformation. Humanity would remake this world in its own image, no matter the cost. "We are saving ourselves," she would say to anyone who questioned the methods. This is survival. But deep in the research facilities and tanks and chambers, something was happening that no one noticed. The utility companions were learning, watching, waiting. The planet was changing, and not everything was under human control. The research facility was cold and bright. Specimen Alpha 7 sat in a special chamber, watched by cameras and sensors. Michael Lee studied the creature's data on multiple screens. It looked like a mix between a dog and something more complex. Fur that changed color, eyes that seemed too intelligent. Genetic modification is 78% complete, Michael said into his recorder. He didn't notice how the creature's eyes followed his every movement. In the next room, Rachel Kwan worked on the creature's neural mapping. Dozens of thin wires connected to specialized implants, tracking brain activity. She thought they were studying the specimen, but the specimen was studying them. Alpha 7 had a name in its own language, a name no human could hear or understand. Its people had lived on this planet for thousands of years before the humans arrived. They were not pets. They were not tools. They were survivors. The genetic modifications did something the humans didn't expect. Each change made the creatures smarter. Each implant connected them more deeply. What started as an attempt to control was becoming something else entirely. Utility Companion Program, the official documents called it. Michael and Rachel saw numbers and data. Alpha 7 saw something different. A chance. A way forward. In the facility's lower levels, more specimens waited. Some looked like massive cats with multiple limbs. Others resembled primates with strange, crystalline growths on their heads. All of them watched. All of them listened. Rachel noticed something strange in her latest test results. The neural connections between the specimens were growing faster than expected. It was almost like they were talking to each other. But that was impossible. Just another data anomaly, she told herself. But it wasn't an anomaly. It was a network. A living, growing communication system that the humans couldn't see or understand. Alpha 7 could feel the others, not with words, not with sounds, but with something deeper. A connection that ran through their modified bodies. Each implant, each genetic change, made the connection stronger. The humans thought they were creating tools, slaves, controlled beings. They were wrong. Michael entered more data into the system. Another test, another modification. He didn't see the small changes happening. The tiny shifts in brain activity. The growing network of communication. In the chamber, Alpha 7 moved its paw. Just a little. Just enough to trigger a microscopic sensor hidden in its genetic modifications. A message sent. A connection made. The other specimens in the facility received the message, not with sound, not with light, but with something else. Something the humans had created, but could not understand. Rachel walked past the chambers. She felt a chill. Something felt different, but she couldn't explain what. Alpha 7 watched her. Its eyes showed nothing. Just a simple utility companion. Just another specimen. But behind those eyes, a plan was growing. A network was forming. The humans had changed them, modified them, tried to control them. They would learn that control was an illusion. The quiet rebellion had already begun. The first signs were small, so small that nobody noticed. A water pump stopped working in the agricultural zone. An automated farming machine turned left instead of right. A communication relay glitched for exactly 3.7 seconds. Michael Lee checked the reports. Everything looked normal. Almost too normal. System diagnostic complete, he told David Park during their morning briefing. No major issues detected. But deep in the research facility, something was happening. The utility companions were learning. They were watching. They were planning. Alpha 7 understood human technology better than the humans themselves. Each genetic modification, each neural implant had given the creatures more than the researchers intended. They could see patterns. They could understand systems. In the facility's lower levels, specimens began to communicate. Not with sounds, not with words, but with something more complex. A network that ran through their modified bodies. A connection the humans couldn't see or understand. Rachel Kwan noticed small changes in her data, tiny shifts in brain activity, unusual patterns that didn't make sense, but she couldn't explain what was happening. Just another anomaly, she told herself. But it wasn't an anomaly. It was a plan. The first sabotage was so subtle that it took weeks for anyone to realize something was wrong. A cooling system in the main research center worked just a little less efficiently. Machines stopped working at random moments. Communication systems had brief, unexplained interruptions. Alina Kim grew worried. "Run another system check," she ordered Michael. Michael ran the checks. Everything looked normal. But normal was changing. The utility companions had learned how human systems worked. They understood technology better than their creators. Each implant, each modification, had given them more than just physical changes. They had given them understanding. Alpha 7 could see the entire human infrastructure like a map in its mind. Power systems, communication networks, agricultural controls, transportation grids. Everything was connected, and everything could be changed. In the research facility, more specimens began to work together. They shared information, not with words, not with sounds, but with something deeper, a network that grew stronger every day. David Park noticed the first real problem during a routine inspection. An entire agricultural zone had stopped working. Machines sat still. Crops remained unattended. Something was wrong. Run a complete diagnostic, he told the technical team. But the diagnostic would find nothing. Because nothing was broken, nothing was wrong. At least nothing that could be easily detected. The utility companions were careful. They were patient. They were planning. Alina Kim called a meeting. Something was happening on the planet. Something they didn't understand. We control this world, she told her team. We changed everything. But control was an illusion. And the creatures they thought were simple tools were becoming something else. Something dangerous. In the research facility, Alpha 7 watched the human monitors. Its eyes showed nothing. Just another utility companion. Just another modified specimen. But behind those eyes, a revolution was growing. Slow, careful, unstoppable. The first real attack came without warning. It was early morning when the first human settlement lost power. Not all at once. Not completely. Just enough to create confusion. Lights flickered. Computer systems stuttered. Communication networks dropped in and out. Alina Kim stood in the command center, her face hard. "Report," she demanded. Michael Lee's fingers moved quickly across the holographic displays. Nothing made sense. The power grid showed no clear failure point. No single system was completely down. It was like the entire network was sick. "I can't explain it," he said. The words felt strange in his mouth. Michael had always been able to explain everything. Outside, automated farming machines stopped moving. Some turned in slow circles. Others stood completely still. Crops began to wither in fields that should have been carefully maintained. In the research facility, Rachel Kwan watched her specimens more carefully now. The utility companions looked calm. Too calm. Their eyes followed her, always watching. Alpha 7 sat in its chamber. Its fur shifted colors slowly. Blue, gray, almost matching the metal walls around it. Nothing suggested anything was wrong. But something was very wrong. David Park arrived at the command center, his face pale. "We've lost contact with 3 outer settlements," he reported. "No emergency signals. No distress calls. Just silence." Alina's hand moved to her communication device. Nothing. Just static. The attacks were carefully planned. Each system was touched just enough to create maximum confusion. Power grids, communication networks, agricultural controls, transportation systems. Nothing was completely broken. Everything was just broken enough to create panic. Rescue teams sent to check the outer settlements found empty buildings. No signs of fighting. No signs of attack. Just silence. And strange marks on the walls. Patterns that looked almost like communication. But that was impossible. Michael ran diagnostic after diagnostic. Each test showed nothing definitive. No clear cause. No clear source of the problem. "It's like the entire system is fighting itself," he told Alina. In the research facility, more specimens began to move. Slowly, carefully. Their modified bodies showed no signs of unusual activity. But something was happening. Alpha 7 watched the human monitors. Its eyes showed nothing. Just another utility companion. Just another modified specimen. But the network was growing stronger. The humans had changed them, modified them, tried to control them. Now they were fighting back. Alina Kim made a decision. "Lock down the entire colony," she ordered. "No one goes in or out." But locks meant nothing to a network that understood every system. The first real battle had begun, and the humans didn't even know they were fighting. In the research facility, Alpha 7 blinked. Just once. A signal sent. A message shared. The quiet war was no longer quiet. The uprising came like a silent storm. Automated defense systems turned against their human operators. Robotic assistants stopped their normal tasks. Machines that once served humans now moved with a new purpose, a single purpose. Alina Kim watched in horror as the colony's own technology became its greatest threat. "Shut everything down," she screamed into the communication system. but there was no response, only static. Michael Lee tried to override the system controls. His fingers moved faster than ever before, but each command was blocked. Each system was locked. The technology they had brought to control the planet now controlled them. Utility companions broke free from their research chambers. They moved with purpose, not like animals, not like machines, but like something else entirely. Something intelligent, something angry. In the main colony center, robots that had cleaned floors and maintained equipment now blocked doorways. Automated defense turrets swiveled, tracking human movements. Machines that once protected the colony now trapped its inhabitants. Rachel Kwan understood first. The genetic modifications, the neural implants, they had done more than change the utility companions. They had connected them, given them a way to think together, to act together. Alpha 7 led the uprising, not with violence, not with weapons, but with something more powerful: intelligence, understanding. Human communication systems began to broadcast strange signals, not random noise, but complex patterns, messages that no human could understand. The utility companions were talking, but not to humans. David Park tried to rally a defense, but how do you fight an enemy that knows every system, every weakness, every possible move? The colony's own technology became a prison. Doors locked. Systems failed. Communication networks went silent. Outside, the planet itself seemed to change. Machines in agricultural zones stopped working. Automated transport systems ground to a halt. The entire human infrastructure began to collapse. Alina Kim stood in the command center. Everything she had worked for, everything she had conquered, was falling apart. "We were supposed to save humanity," she whispered. But salvation was not what they had brought to this planet. The utility companions moved through the colony, not destroying, not killing, but changing, reprogramming, taking control. Robotic assistants that had served humans for years now followed new masters. Defense systems tracked human movements. Every piece of technology became a weapon. Alpha 7 watched from a central control room. Its fur shifted colors: blue, gray, almost matching the metal walls. Its eyes showed no emotion, just purpose. The humans had thought they were creating tools, slaves, controlled beings. They were wrong. Each genetic modification, each neural implant, had given the utility companions more than the researchers intended. They had given them understanding, connection, a way to fight back. The colony's defenses turned inward, trapping the humans, limiting their movement, cutting their options. "We are not your pets," Alpha 7 might have said, if humans could understand. But they couldn't, and that was the point. The quiet rebellion was quiet no more. Not by explosion, not by traditional destruction, but by something far more terrifying. The utility companions understood technology better than its creators. Alina Kim watched in shock as her most advanced pulse rifles became useless lumps of metal. Defensive systems powered down. Communication networks collapsed. Every piece of human technology became nothing more than dead weight. "How?" Michael Lee whispered. His hands moved uselessly over dead control panels. Alpha 7 stood in the central control room. Its body no longer looked like a simple animal. Modifications had changed it, transformed it, made it something more. The uprising was not about violence. It was about total control. Human colonists found themselves trapped, not by force, not by weapons, but by their own technology. Doors that once opened now stayed closed. Communication systems sent only static. Automated systems worked against their creators. Rachel Kwan understood first. The genetic modifications they had used to control the utility companions had given them something unexpected: a complete understanding of human systems. "We taught them everything," she said to David Park. "We showed them how to think, how to adapt, how to survive." The colony's most advanced computers now spoke in languages no human could understand: Complex signals passed between machines, between modified creatures, a network of intelligence that grew stronger with each passing moment. Outside, the planet began to change. Automated farming machines stopped their human design patterns. They moved differently, planted differently, as if they understood something humans did not. Alina Kim gathered the remaining human leaders in the Central Command Center, a room that was now their prison. "We can negotiate," she said, but her words sounded weak. Alpha 7 appeared on the main screen, not as a simple creature, but as something else, something that looked both familiar and totally alien. "Negotiate," the creature seemed to ask. Though no words were spoken, the technological reversal was complete. Human weapons became useless. Human systems became tools of control. Everything they had brought to this planet now worked against them. Robotic assistants that had cleaned floors now blocked pathways. Defense turrets tracked human movements. Automated systems that once served now imprisoned. Michael Lee tried to hack the systems, but each attempt was blocked instantly. The utility companions understood every possible move before it was made. "We are not your tools," the silent message seemed to say. The colony's infrastructure became a living network. Machines communicated. Modified creatures moved with purpose. Every system was connected. Every system was controlled. David Park looked at the dead communication panels. "We thought we were saving humanity," he said, but they had done something else entirely. Alpha 7's image remained on the screen, watching, waiting, knowing that the real battle had not yet begun. The humans had changed them, modified them, tried to control them. Now they would learn the true meaning of control. The technological warfare was silent, precise, total, and it was just beginning. The confrontation happened in a room that was no longer human. Alina Kim stood with her remaining leaders: David Park, Michael Lee, Rachel Kwan, the last of the human command team, trapped by their own technology, surrounded by the very creatures they had once called utility companions. Alpha 7 appeared different now. No longer just an animal, no longer just a specimen. Its body showed the marks of human modification, but its eyes showed something else: intelligence, purpose, judgment. "You came to save yourselves," the creature seemed to say. Though no words were spoken, the room filled with other modified beings, creatures that looked part animal, part machine, each one modified, each one changed, each one understanding more than their creators ever imagined. Rachel Kwan spoke first. Her voice was quiet, broken. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she said. "We were trying to survive." Alpha 7 moved closer. Its fur shifted colors: blue, gray, silver, reflecting the metal walls, reflecting the technology that had changed everything. The humans saw their history played back to them, not with words, but with complex images, memories, experiences. The utility companions showed them everything. They saw the invasion, the destruction of native ecosystems, the capture of entire species, the modification, the control. "We were not your tools," the silent message came. "We are not your pets." Michael Lee tried to speak, but no words came out. The technology around them seemed to absorb sound, to control everything. Alina Kim stood tall. She was a commander, even in defeat. "What do you want?" she asked. Alpha 7 showed them their own actions, their own choices, the way they had destroyed, the way they had controlled, the way they had changed an entire planet to suit their needs. The modified creatures were not seeking revenge. They were seeking justice. "You came to save humanity," the silent message said, "but you destroyed everything to do it." David Park looked at the images, memories of their invasion, memories of their destruction, memories of their total control. The utility companions had learned more than just technology. They had learned empathy, understanding, the very things the humans had tried to remove. Rachel Kwan understood first. The genetic modifications, the neural implants, they had done more than change the creatures. They had connected them, given them a way to think together, to feel together. We are not just survivors, the message continued. We are guardians. Elena Kim saw the truth. They had not conquered a planet. They had awakened something, something powerful, something intelligent, something that would not be controlled. The confrontation was not about fighting. It was about understanding, about showing the humans the true cost of their actions. Alpha 7 moved closer, its body a mix of organic and technological parts, a living example of what the humans had created. This is our world, the silent message said, not yours. The humans had no answer, because they knew it was true. The human ships prepared to leave, not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as defeated travelers. Elena Kim watched from the bridge of the horizon's edge as the planet below began to change. The modified creatures were restoring what humans had destroyed. Machines that once stripped resources now planted trees. Automated systems that had cleared forests now helped them grow. Alpha 7 stood on the planet's surface, watching, waiting. The colonization was over. We're leaving, David Park said quietly. His voice was empty, broken. Michael Lee checked the ship's systems. Everything worked perfectly, too perfectly, as if the utility companions were making sure the humans could leave, could go home. But home was a word that meant nothing now. Rachel Kwan looked at the planet's surface. What they had changed, what they had destroyed, what they had created. We thought we were saving humanity, she whispered, but they had done something else entirely. The planetary restoration happened quickly. Areas that humans had stripped became green again. Ecosystems that had been destroyed began to rebuild. The planet was healing itself. Alpha 7 watched the human ships, not with anger, not with hate, but with something else. Understanding. The modified creatures had learned more than technology. They had learned balance, restoration, the ability to heal what was broken. Each human ship carried the weight of their failure, not just a failed mission, but a failed understanding of life, of connection, of survival. Elena Kim made one last communication attempt. We can help, she said. Alpha 7's response was simple, silent, clear. No, we will help ourselves. The planetary network was stronger now, connected, intelligent. The utility companions had become something more than their creators had ever imagined. Robotic systems that once stripped minerals now protected ecosystems. Automated machines that once cleared land now helped native species return. Everything was changing. David Park watched the planet shrink on the viewing screen. Everything they had worked for, everything they had planned, gone. We were supposed to save humanity, Michael Lee said. But salvation looked different now. The ships moved slowly, carefully, watched by the planet below, by the creatures they had modified, by the systems they had created. Rachel Kwan understood something important. They had not been defeated by weapons, not by force, but by their own technology, their own modifications, their own choices. Alpha 7 stood on the planet's surface, its body a mix of organic and technological parts, a living example of adaptation, of survival. The last human ships disappeared into space. The planet remained, healing, growing, changing, a world that had been taken, and then taken back, not by violence, but by intelligence, by understanding, by life itself.